Hello, test, sound test. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gen Forum 2024. And so delighted to be here. My name is Ahmad Karim. I'm the Advocacy and Campaigns lead at the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. And together with my colleague, Laura Lee Sage, international consultants on governance, peace, and security, we are honored to be your master of ceremony and guide you through this engaging forum over the next 3 days.
Over the next days, we will examine some of the most pressing peace and security challenges and explore practical solutions to enhance our collective impact. Today and tomorrow, we'll address the key issues identified by young women peace and security practitioners from across Asia and the Pacific, setting the stage for Day 3's critical advocacy and outcomes discussions.
And to open the conference, I'm so delighted to invite Suzanne Ferguson, the Regional Director of UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, to come to the stage for the speech.
Thank you very much. And it's so lovely to be here with you all today in such an important event. So excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and youth leaders for women and men. It's really an honour to be with you, as I said, for the opening of the Gen Forum 2024. I'd really like to begin to extend my warmest greetings to our young leaders who are here today. I commend you for your dedication and efforts, and I really thank you for joining us today and for coming from all over the region to this meeting. I'd also really like to express my gratitude to the Government of Australia and the Government of the Republic of Korea for your really, invaluable partnership and your generous support to UN Women. We really are very grateful. And it's actually through your contributions that this forum is able to even happen. So thank you so much. So today we bring together a rising generation of young leaders from Asia and the Pacific who are committed to advancing the women, peace and security agenda across the region. And this agenda stands as one of the most inspiring achievements of the global women's movement. It recognises that peace is inextricably linked to gender equality and women's empowerment. We can't have equality unless we also have peace. This 3-day conference, uniting some of the best minds from the region, is pivotal as we really navigate the dark time in our history marked by increasing conflicts, escalating violence, and diminishing peace and security for everyone. And there really has been a global regression on women's rights and gender equality gains because of the level of insecurity in the world. Yet despite these challenges, we've made really noticeable progress over the last 2 decades. And we really have to celebrate the achievements as well as we recognise some of the things that are holding us back. In the Asia-Pacific region, 13 countries have developed national action plans on women, peace and security with the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations, that's ASEAN, adopting a regional plan of action. This is really critical. More than 1/3 of all peace agreements now incorporate provisions referencing women, girls and gender equality. And the presence of female peacekeepers from Asia has surged from zero in 2000 to 723 in 2020. Obviously, we still need to continue that trajectory, but that is advancing. And despite the fact that there is still more to do in women peacekeepers, the proportion of women negotiators in UN-led or co-led peace processes has doubled over the past 2 decades. So that is also really good news. Additionally, while advancements on women's political participation is slow, The proportion of seats held by women in national parliaments in countries across Asia and the Pacific has gradually been increasing, rising from 13% in 2000 to 21% in 2024. And actually, India, the largest parliament in the region, has just announced special measures for women in parliament. So 1/3 of the seats will be held by women, hopefully in the next elections. So that will lift up the figures overall. So reflecting on my own personal journey, I really remain inspired by young women leaders in the region. And here I'm so pleased to see Papua New Guinea represented in this forum. I spent a long time in Papua New Guinea, and I went to many of the conflict areas in Papua New Guinea. I met with women and young women in those areas who had experienced the most horrendous situations, from things like, having to give birth on the side of the road without any support whatsoever, and not having any food for a long time, having to forage for food, losing their children in battles. A battle would occur and the children would run into the bush and disappear. So, listening to these women's stories, they were so resilient, despite this terrible trauma and the situations that had happened. They were able to rebuild their lives. They were able to negotiate for land, to plant new crops so that they could feed themselves. They began to run small businesses so that they could make some cash, so they could save some money, and they started to negotiate with the fighters for the return of their children. So I was always inspired by what women do to survive and influence peace. So, despite the many challenges that remain, we have made notable progress in the last 2 decades since the adoption of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda to improve women's meaningful participation. So just wanting to really emphasise that we are progressing. So with these words, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the significance of active and meaningful youth involvement in peace and security efforts can't be overstated. We have to have more young people, young women, young men involved in this process, and we need more young men supporting young women's leadership in this. This is not something that young women can and should have to do by themselves. We all need to support gender equality and young women's voice. And I'm so glad to see today that we have young men also who are supporting young women. So we're pleased to share with you now a message from our Deputy Executive Director, Ms. Nyuradzai Kumbanzvanda, who will also talk more about UN Women's commitment to this agenda. So with that, thank you very much for coming, and I'm really pleased to see you all here, and I look forward to hearing the outcomes of your discussions. I'm sure they'll be really fruitful. Thank you. And one last thing, thank you to the team in UN Women who's put this together. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates, UN and UN Women colleagues, and honorable guests, I'm so pleased to welcome you to this regional conference on young leaders for women, peace and security in Asia and the Pacific, organized by UN Women in partnership with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia. I am so heartened by the unwavering commitment exhibited by young women across the Asia-Pacific region towards advancing women, peace and security, as well as youth and peace and security agendas, which we know lies at the heart of equality, empowerment, and rights. The stories and dedicated efforts of individuals, including in this room, and the organizations you come from, resonate deeply with the core mission of UN Women. And through our work, we prioritize amplifying the voices of young people, both young men and young women, in peace processes and at all levels, from fostering a common understanding of women, peace and security, as well as youth peace and security principles, to generate innovative approaches for advancing gender equality and peace building. Our collaborative efforts are instrumental in driving positive change. I had the opportunity to visit some of your countries and therefore looking forward to the discussions, because your analysis, your aspirations and recommendations are crucial. As we prepare for the key global policy discussions, the Summit for the Future this September, and the anniversaries of UN Security Council Resolution 1325, as well as the Beijing Platform for Action with its 30th anniversary, as we engage in the peace-building architecture review. UN Women's work on the ground is built on remarkable examples of youth empowerment and leadership. The challenges we face may be formidable, but the resolve and the resilience of young women peace builders are equally robust. Young women peace builders are human rights defenders. By harnessing the energy and innovation of the youth, we unlock the potential for transformative change across the Asia-Pacific region and indeed beyond. We know, and I know, that critical gaps persist between the ambitions articulated in international commitments to the women, peace and security agendas and the realities on the ground. You will discuss these issues in the coming 3 days, and we are keen to hear and learn from your analysis, your experience, and the diversity of your views. I can anticipate issues related to gender-based violence. I can anticipate issues related to protection and issues related to your own leadership. Through our regional framework to advance the women, peace and security agenda and inclusive governance in the Asian Pacific region, UN Women partners with the generous support of the Republic of Korea and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia. We are grateful for such support that allows us to focus on the important issues in the region and scale up this valuable work globally. We are launching 2 new reports focusing on how women leaders in Southeast Asia are affected by the digital and cybersecurity risks, and how emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence can be leveraged to support gender-responsive peace efforts. And I'm sure these topics will be in the center of your discussions at this conference. Your resilience, your perspective, and your innovative solutions are integral to shaping a future where inclusivity, equality, and sustainable peace reign supreme. Let us embark on this journey together, leveraging the power of young people and youth leadership to create lasting impact and transformative change. Thank you again, and our collective endeavors pave that way for a brighter, more peaceful future for all. I thank you so much, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Suzanne and Didi Narazai.
It is my pleasure to now introduce an inspiring message from a key supporter of our mission, Stephanie Copus Campbell, the Australian Ambassador for Gender Equality. Australia has been a steadfast advocate for the women, peace and security agenda, providing critical support and resources to advance gender equality and women's leadership in peacebuilding and security efforts. Under the Cyber and Critical Tech Cooperation Program, the Australian Government has played a pivotal role in promoting women's peace and digital security, making today's launch of the research reports possible.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Coppice-Campbell, and I'm Australia's Ambassador for Gender Equality. I want to start by thanking UN Women for creating a safe, inclusive space for you all to come together. You are our next generation of peacemakers, peace builders, and human rights defenders. The Australian Government is deeply committed to gender equality and the women, peace and security agenda. We know that gender equality is the #1 predictor of peace, more so than a state's wealth, level of democracy, or religious identity. Yet, as the WPS agenda enters its third decade, we are witnessing the rapid backsliding on progress towards gender equality and the protection of human rights. We also know the drivers of instability and insecurity are changing. Climate change, pandemics, and prolonged and intersecting conflicts and crises are all exacerbating our ability to make progress. Technology is increasingly being used to facilitate violence. All too often, we're seeing peace builders and human rights defenders, especially women and girls and people from the LGBTQIA+ community, being targeted and harassed online for the work they do and the values they stand for. This is why our collective commitment to gender equality and the WPS agenda is more urgent than ever. And we can't do this without the inclusion and leadership of young people, all 1.9 billion of you, the largest generation of young people in our history. We know young people, like you here today, are already leading in this space, bringing innovative solutions and inspiring change. But I also know this work doesn't come without its cost. So I want you all to know that I see you and I appreciate you. The Australian Government appreciates you, and so many others around the world also see you and appreciate you. And we thank you. I'm sorry that I'm not able to join you in the physical room today, but I encourage you to use the Gen Forum this week to not only learn from each other and strengthen your networks, but also to take care of each other. Have a fantastic week.
Thank you, Ambassador Coppice-Campbell, for your inspiring words and your unwavering support for the Women, Peace and Security agenda. It's really amazing to see all the eyes coming all the way from Australia to New York, looking at you today. And especially that young people bridge that gap between traditional peace building and the newer, more inclusive vision, ensuring that the future is resilient, equitable, and peaceful. Today, we are honored to introduce you to Kishi, the co-founder of the United Nations Association of Mongolia, who embodies that spirit and actively champion the role of young people in advancing the Women, Peace and Security objective. Kishi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, esteemed guests and fellow young leaders. I'm deeply humbled and honored to stand before you today, representing the incredible cohort of remarkable young individuals gathered here in person and online. Each of us is a testament to the power of young people, and I'm simply awestruck by the myriad accomplishments of our peers. From advocating for disability and human rights to supporting refugees and fostering entrepreneurship, the breadth of our collective impact is truly inspiring. Thinking back on my own journey, I'm reminded of the long path I've traveled, marked by both triumphs and challenges. Never could I have imagined that my efforts to bridge the opportunity gap in my country would lead to the transformation of thousands of lives. For over a decade, I dedicated myself to volunteering for community development and youth empowerment. fueled by a burning passion to connect youth with opportunities for growth in a landscape where such avenues are scarce. I embarked on the journey of establishing an NGO that might provide us with those opportunities. Little did I know that it would take me 2 years of relentless advocacy with both the government and the UN in my country before the UN Association of Mongolia was finally born in 2021 amidst the challenges of a global pandemic. Through this organization, we've established formal channels for youth participation in national decision-making, forging partnerships with government entities, the UN, and the private sector. Our reach extends beyond borders as we collaborate on regional initiatives like UNDPPA's Futuring Peace, engaging youth from Northeast Asia in dialogues of peace and collaboration. In just 3 years, we've partnered with over 40 organizations, raised over $100,000, contributed to a UN report on disarmament, and influenced change in national legislation. My leadership journey has been far from perfect, characterized by uncertainty, doubt, and moments of fear. Quite many moments of fear, to be exact. But through it all, I learned that leadership isn't about having all the answers or always knowing the way forward. It's really about embracing our vulnerability, cultivating empathy, and inspiring others to join you on the journey. Leadership is not defined by age or title, but by the actions we take in the lives we touch along the way. It is also through the guidance of my mother and the trailblazing women who came before her that I found the strength to overcome obstacles and pursue my passions. I'm really forever grateful for the resilience of such women everywhere for driving positive change in their communities. Before I conclude, I invite you all to imagine, if you will, a lighthouse standing tall against a raging sea. Its light cutting through the darkness, guiding ships safely to shore. In many ways, you are that lighthouse. You possess a unique brightness, an unwavering determination, and a steadfast commitment to guiding others toward a bright and peaceful future. Just as a lighthouse illuminates the way for ships at sea, your leadership has the power to light the path for others, guiding them toward their own greatness. In that regard, I believe that we are beacons of hope, blazing trails even in the darkest of times. Though our journey may sometimes feel solitary and daunting, let today mark a new chapter, one where we find strength in the support, inspiration, and renewed energy of our collective community, propelling us forward towards our shared vision of peace and sustainability in Asia and beyond. Last, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the organizers for launching this initiative and bringing us all together. Let us have a great conference ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kishi, for those very powerful words. You are most certainly a very tall lighthouse, and I know that you have inspired me and many others in the room.
Well, Kishi, you kind of remind me of the time when we first were advocating for the U.S. Peace and Security resolution, inspired by the Women Peace and Security resolution. And I remember knocking in the doors of diplomatic missions back in New York when it was like a dream. Like, can you imagine, having a U.S. Peace and Security resolution? And we were in doubt. But it was with the help of the diplomatic community that made that dream true. And I'm so happy to actually acknowledge the presence of some of our distinguished guests here who has been a great support to the Gen Forum and to the Women, Peace and Security agenda. We'd like to extend a warm welcome to Her Excellency Ms. Astrid Hilly, Ambassador of Norway, His Excellency Ms. Yuri Jarvio, Ambassador of Finland, Mr. Ham Jong-han, Deputy Chief of Mission to the Embassy of Republic of Korea, Ms. Sarah Gascard, Deputy Head of Mission at the Belgium Embassy, Ms. Huisi Kay, Second Secretary at the Australian Embassy, Ms. Ingrid Madsen, Deputy Head of Mission at the Danish Embassy, and Ms. Irini Suri, the Regional Director for the Canada Border Service Agency. We are deeply grateful for your support and presence here.
It is my honour to bring you to the next part of our session, where we're excited to announce the launch of 2 groundbreaking research reports. These reports are a testament to the close partnership between the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific and the United Nations University Institute in Macau. Developed under the regional project Women, Peace and Cybersecurity, promoting women's peace and security in the digital world, these reports were made possible through the generous support of the governments of the Republic of Korea and Australia under the Cyber and Critical Tech Cooperation Program.
This launch is being conducted in a hybrid format, with many of our colleagues and participants tuning in via live streaming. We are thrilled to have all of you join us, whether you are here in person or connecting from far.
To formally mark the start of our launch, I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Ham Jong-han, Deputy Chief of Mission to the Embassy of the Republic of Korea in Thailand. Mr. Ham Jong-han will offer his remarks on the relevance of digital security to the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Mr. Ham Jong-han, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Ms. Suzanne Ferguson, Regional Director of the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and Pacific, Ambassadors, Excellencies, distinguished speakers, the young leaders of the Asia Pacific. It is my great pleasure to participate in this meaningful, the annual event, the bringing together young women peace and security champions, the CSOs and women peace builders, to discuss emerging peace and security challenges, including cybersecurity. This represents a great opportunity to explore opportunities for collaboration in advancing the WPS agenda in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. I'd like to begin by thanking the Government of Australia and the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and Pacific for all their hard work in organizing this meaningful forum. Distinguished participants, in a world where the challenges of peace and security are ever evolving, our commitment to fostering inclusive governance and innovative solution is absolute key. The participation and leadership of women in security, both traditional and non-traditional security areas, is not merely a matter of equality, but indeed a fundamental necessity for the sake of the very stability and prosperity of our societies and nations. As acknowledged in the UN Secretary General's new agenda for peace, we are witnessing unprecedented challenges to the peace and security of cyberspace. And the call for a safe and secure cyberspace for all has intensified significantly over the past decade. Indeed, online spaces and digital tools have facilitated access to essential information and services, the tapping and boosting educational and employment opportunities for women and girls. And yet, on the other hand, it has also increased risk to online and technology-facilitated violence and harassment against women and threatening their safety and dignity. As we navigate the complexities of the digital age, it is imperative that we ensure women are represented in cybersecurity decision-making platform. It is important that the complex, sensitive, and gender-responsive cybersecurity policies are fully adopted in shaping a digital world that is just and inclusive and secure for all. I'm glad of this opportunity to highlight the Korea's endeavors to advance the WPS agenda at the international and regional levels as a responsible member of the international community. As part of our long-standing Action with Women and Peace initiative, we successfully hosted the 5th International Conference on Action with Women and Peace last November. In particular, the youth session provided opportunities for future WPS leaders to exchange ideas to tackle the online gender-based violence. It also offered a valuable chance to explore strategies to promote safe, inclusive, and constructive engagement in cyberspace, contributing to the further advancement of the WPS agenda. At the regional level, Korea has also been an active sponsor in the establishment of the UN Women Asia Pacific Regional Offices, regional framework towards peaceful and inclusive society. The regional program, Women, Peace, and Cybersecurity, promoting women's peace and security in the digital world, is a centerpiece of our dedication to advocacy and capacity building. The program is providing regional workshops to strengthen digital security practice for women as well as country-level activities in the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. It is a great channel for sharing the wisdom learned from experiences and expertise on peace and conflict prevention effort. Furthermore, as the host country of the UN Women's Center of Excellence for Gender Equality in Seoul, Korea, we are supporting training programs such as cross-country exchanges and learning on empowering youth to address technology-facilitated gender-based violence. In ways such as this, we are vividly demonstrating our steadfast commitment to amplifying the voices of women and promoting the rule of law and women's access to justice. Distinguished participants, noting that 25th anniversary of Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security is fast approaching. I wish to conclude by reiterating Korea's heartfelt commitment to strengthening efforts in advancing the WPS agenda. You should do so in a way which reflects the evolving security environment, broadening and translating the global agenda for women, peace, and security into national and local action. I trust this gathering will be a catalyst for enduring partnership, groundbreaking ideas, and transformative action. It is my sincere hope that the effect will resonate far beyond these halls, and I look to you all for your wholehearted efforts in pursuit of this noble aspiration. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Ham Jong-han, for your insightful remarks and for highlighting that crucial link between digital security and the Women, Peace and Security agenda. UN Women is incredibly grateful to the government of the Republic of Korea for its continuous support. It is really invaluable to our mission.
I'm pleased to introduce you to Alexandra Hagen-Schmidt, who is Governance, Peace and Security Consultant at UN Women, who will moderate the presentation of our research findings. Alexandra.
Thank you so much, Emad and Laura Lee, for giving me the floor. And thank you to Mr. Ham Jong-han as well for your lovely remarks, marking the start of the launch of 2 research reports that we're launching. So good morning, everyone. Lovely to see everyone here. It is with much excitement that we are announcing that we're able to share 2 research reports with you today. Before delving into the specific contents of the reports, I just want to provide some brief context to the project that we conducted this under. So the research itself was initiated 1.5 years ago in recognition of the impacts of digitization on conflict dynamics and a dire need to better understand how this is affecting communities across Southeast Asia. Specifically, it sought to narrow the knowledge gap on the impact of online harms on women's leadership and civic engagement. And it was undertaken to inform evidence-based initiatives to effectively prevent and respond to the systematic use of online harms to silence women's voices as part of broader efforts to defend core WPS principles in a time where civic freedoms and gender equality has suffered a severe backslide. Importantly, the findings from both reports have informed the development of a number of capacity building assets, such as self-paced e-learning, facilitation guidance, and broader support to community-based digital security trainers, which have all been advanced under the partnership with UNU in Macau. This process has also been guided by a network of women's civil society and digital rights representatives from across the region to ensure that the content is truly purposeful and tailored to the key needs voiced by women in the region. The completion of these research initiatives is hence not only pivotal in a sense that it contributes to an emerging body of research, but it also brings us closer to making resources which directly respond to the digital security needs of women leaders, peace builders, and human rights defenders more broadly available. And as a follow-up to this launch, we do also have 3 online courses and 2 facilitation handbooks coming out in the following months, which will all draw from the research we're launching today. So today I also have the pleasure of being joined by our 2 lead researchers for respective report, who will bring us through the key findings and recommendations for each of them. So tuning in virtually from Macau, we have Dr. Jamie Stewart, who is an applied cultural and developmental psychologist and senior researcher and team lead at UNU Macau. Her work focuses on computer-human interaction, examining a broad range of issues related to social justice, peace, and development in the context of digital transformation. She specifically aims to support the creation of safe and secure online spaces for everyone, with a specific focus on the empowerment of minority groups and at-risk groups. And she's also been the lead researcher in the report, which examines women's leaders' experiences of cyber threats in Southeast Asia. Via link from New York, we also have Dr. Eleanor Fournier-Toombs, who is the head of anticipatory action and innovation at the UNU Center for Policy Research and the research lead for the UN's AI advisory body. She led the research team studying the impact of AI and the WPS agenda in Southeast Asia, and she's authored several papers and policy reports on AI and gender, as well as the book Gender Reboot, which was published in 2023. So warm thanks to both of you joining us today. I think we have you on the screen. That's great to see. So without further ado, let's go into the presentations of the research reports. So may I please start by welcoming Jamie to take the floor to bring us through the key takeaways from the report titled Cybersecurity Threats, Vulnerabilities and Resilience Among Women Human Rights Defenders and Women's Civil Society Organizations in Southeast Asia. Jamie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you to everybody for coming along today to share with us in the launching of these reports, but also in the in this wonderful initiative of bringing young people together under this topic. I feel very grateful to present to you one of the first research report, which is concerning cybersecurity threats, vulnerabilities and resilience among women human rights defenders and civil society in Southeast Asia. Although I won't have an opportunity to go through the results in a whole lot of detail, I do hope today that I give you enough information so that you're able to and interested and motivated in picking up the report and reading it in detail. So to start off with, it's very important that we situate the research within the context of digital technologies and cybersecurity itself. So cybersecurity, for those of you who may be very aware and knowledgeable about this, others who may not be, is a complex concept that is both a state in which information and computer systems are free from threat, as well as a set of practices by individuals and organizations to ensure that systems, devices, computers are safe. Now, that is within a women, peace and security framework is relatively limiting in its way of the thoughts and feelings about protecting of women and marginalized peoples. So this is where we started the research, which is to say that is the way that we understand cybersecurity and the way that we approach cybersecurity practices and implement reductions in threat in online environments, is it suitable for women and girls in Southeast Asia? What we know is that the framing of cybersecurity, traditional framing, really neglects the human and social aspects of cybersecurity, or how people use devices, the vulnerabilities that they have. And traditional framings also focus on prevention of the risks that we know, and they overlook new risks, specifically risks from frontier technologies like AI, in which the next report will discuss. The other thing is that traditional cybersecurity has a focus on organizational cyber risks rather than personal cyber risks. And sometimes that's to the detriment of our understanding how individuals use devices safely and securely. And because the genesis of cybersecurity is within national security frameworks, that often gives little room for discussing human rights and may even actually harm or overshadow human rights in the pursuit of security. And that actually is one thing that has been found within the region, that some of cybersecurity policies and practices can actually be used to diminish a voice rather than to empower people. So these are all the critical issues that we're interested in that frame the research. So in coming from that, how do we move from traditional cybersecurity and some of those constraints or issues that I was just discussing into a cybersecurity that is fit for understanding women, girls, and marginalized or vulnerable groups? What we can do is take an approach to understand human-centric cybersecurity. That is, protection of technology systems as a mechanism for human security and the protection of human rights, rather than specifically as the protection of systems or devices in and of themselves. So that is that cybersecurity can be then considered to be a context in which safety and well-being are paramount, and that cybersecurity practice not only focuses on risks that disempower, but also how tools and cyber hygiene and cyber resilience can be used as capacities for empowerment. So this is a very big change from traditional understandings of cybersecurity. That is, we position people rather than technology, but not to the expense of reducing safety of technology. They're the primary subjects of cybersecurity. Human safety is the main aim and concern. And the Association for Progressive Communications, APC, has already come up with a really nice definition that helps us orient in this way, which is to say that cybersecurity is inextricably linked to human security, and it's a fundamental right. They're complementary and mutually reinforcing and interdependent, and they both need to be pursued together. So human security, women's security, youth security, cybersecurity are all complementary aims that we have. Alongside this, as has already been discussed very briefly, and as we're all really aware, cybersecurity in digital environments are gendered. And there are more opportunities in this very rapid digitally transforming context than ever before, but there are also new forms of inequality and heightened threats. And some of the key reasons are that women and girls in general have lower levels of access, have lower levels of digital literacies and competencies, and fewer technical skills, as well as less ability to fundamentally achieve those skills. Less representation in education and the workforce, and they are more likely to be the targets of cyber attack and cyber crime. And we do know a lot about technology facilitated gender-based violence as a vector for violence against women. Gender exclusion in cybersecurity means that the digital tools that we have often fail to meet the needs of women and girls, that they're unsafe, they're based on masculine norms, and that innovation is stifled. This has a long-term issue of there being downstream effects in technology in the future. And foresight can help us understand that if we don't do something about this now, then our technologies and emerging tech systems are going to continue to be biased and less representative of women. So in that framework, the research itself really seeks to not upend cybersecurity, but actually make it more inclusive and make our understanding of women and human rights essential to cybersecurity practice. And these are some of the key ways in which our research differed from traditional focus of cybersecurity. This is in the report. Please do read that background and context in detail. I now have probably less time than what I'd like to talk about some of the results, but I did want to begin by discussing the framing of cybersecurity. It is a complex issue, and it's not just a technical issue. It's, as I said, it's a human issue. So the way that we framed this was to break down some of the critical concepts, which are cyber risks, into cyber threats, which I'll talk about in a little bit now, cyber vulnerabilities, cyber resources or assets, as well as the harms that they cause. And I really do want to highlight the harms that they cause was something that was quite novel about the work that we did. So cyber assets is to say that the elements or digital technologies, as they are important for human rights, women human rights defenders and civil society, what we found is from our research, which was both a survey and a set of interviews, that they're integral to the work that's to advocacy. They're integral to human rights defenders, and many of the technologies that we already know what were described as like the life or the life of the work. They keep functioning of human rights defenders and civil societies on a day-to-day basis. And one of the key things that we found in this space was that digital devices personal and organizational digital device use is very much blurred. And social media itself is actually a critical asset. So this is used to produce and disseminate information, as well as for avenues to drive social movements and for women advocates to connect with others. So this quote came from the research, which really highlights that social media is a way of getting support and a way of engaging people, but it's also a way to safely communicate through encrypted technologies with women who might be vulnerable or with clients of women's civil society. In terms of cyber threats, which may be something that people are particularly interested in, this is the definition that we used of cyber threats, which are incidents that have the potential to cause harm through technological systems by compromising assets and exploiting vulnerabilities. This is a lot of detail on the slide. Again, there's much more in the report for you to look at. What we did is identify a series of very common, relatively common cyber threats that are experienced within civil society and broader than that, and looked at whether or not they differ between women's civil society and civil society organizations more broadly. And what we did find is that these cyber threats pretty highly prevalent, and are considered to be quite an intense threat. But there are some things that experience more than others, and online harassment and disinformation, unsurprisingly, are experienced very often by WCSOs and women human rights defenders. We also find that those women civil societies have higher threat perceptions than general civil society, and the largest differences were in the experience of online harassment and viruses. That there is a higher frequency of threats as well, with online harassment, trolling, and doxing being some of the critical cyber threats that experienced. But I do want to highlight that even some of the most some very intense threats like ransomware are still experienced at a relatively high rate amongst our sample. We also looked at cyber threats in terms of personal experiences of cyber threats, not just at the organization, but have people personally experienced that. And we come across very similar issues. We have cyber threats like phishing and viruses. These are very, very common for people. So we had 93% of people experiencing phishing, which is emails trying to scam you, very high levels of prevalence of viruses, but also high levels of online harassment and things like being threatened online, receiving unwanted intimate images, videos, and messages. Now, what I really wanted to highlight here is that the content and type of personal threats that happened were very much in the form of sexual harassment. and misogyny and sexism were understood as really key threats. So these were very normatively experienced and discussed by women human rights defenders as a key element of what was happening. So it's not just that cyber threats are going on, it's that they tend to be sexually oriented, they tend to be misogynistic as well. And cyber vulnerabilities are the technical or non-technical weaknesses that are experienced by women, civil society, that exploit, and which can be exploited by by threat actors. So what we found is that things like flaws in digital infrastructure, unsecured networks, unpatched software, these are all potential vulnerabilities, as are the ways in which we use technologies. So for this sample, we found that active device protection was a major vulnerability. So women and women human rights defenders, women civil society actors are not necessarily actively engaging in their own protection, which is actually a very common human thing, but it's particularly difficult for this group because they are under a whole lot higher levels of threat. Use of unlicensed software, posting on social media, and not checking settings were also very important issues here, as well as personal use of devices like a personal phone or a personal laptop without security. So these are sorts of things that are also interrelated with the funding context as the resourcing context of civil society. They don't exist in their own as vulnerabilities. And what I did want to say that this, at the very top of the slide here, I download any files that would help get me to get the job done, was highly endorsed by our sample. That is to say that oftentimes we expose ourselves to, or make ourselves more vulnerable simply by engaging how we can engage with the digital environment.
Jamie, thank you so much. I'm sorry to jump in. Thank you deeply for sharing these interesting research findings. I know that we haven't had the time to go through all of them, but I think in interest of keeping time, we have to move on. If there's a last remark that you want to give, 1 or 2 sentences, please go ahead. If not, I would like to encourage everyone in the room to grab a copy of the research, to go through the data, because there's some really interesting graphs in there that compare women's civil society organizations' experiences of online harms, comparing these to other types of organizations where we do see a clear trend of there being gender differences in these approaches.
My apologies for going over time, and thank you for stopping me there. My timer went off and I didn't see it. I just would like to finish on this very last slide, which is to understand gender sensitive and human centered. So that should be cybersecurity, not AI. What I really want to highlight here, and what is coming from the research report, is that we need to centralize harm reduction in terms of cybersecurity. That is not just what are the threats, what are the vulnerabilities, but what harms do they lead to for women human rights defenders and women with civil society. That we need to focus on co-creating and doing storytelling for open resource banks, training in gender-sensitive and culturally appropriate incident and cybersecurity responses, and denormalizing online violence. What I want to say from that in particular is that there is a sense here that it's normal to experience this when you're advocating as a woman or as a marginalized person, and we really need to change the narrative in that way. So thank you very much. I do hope that you enjoy the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Big round of applause. I would now like to ask Eleanor to take the floor to elaborate a bit further on maybe some points that we could see on Jamie's last slide relating to AI, and just going through some of the risks and opportunities that we've seen of employing these technologies in peace and security settings. So Eleanor, please go ahead. Sorry, Eleanor, you're muted.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Jamie, for such an insightful presentation. So I'm going to speak now about the second report that was published on artificial intelligence and the WPS agenda. And before I start, I would like to acknowledge the other researchers that worked with me on this project. Jung-hyun Lee, who's in South Korea, Min Yang, who's at UNU Macau, and Preeti Raghunath, who was at the time working for Monash University in Malaysia. So the main interest in our research was to understand the dynamics of AI in the WPS. And when we talk about the dynamics, it's an issue that we see a lot with AI, is that we are often considering both the risks and opportunities. And for me, I think these are very complementary in that we can't fully harness the opportunities of AI if we don't make it safe and if we don't account for the risks. And from a broader perspective beyond Southeast Asia, when you think about what potential risks AI could have for women, we tend to think about this in terms of four main risks. One is discrimination. So that's when AI systems have a different output for women than for men, based really on their gender. And this can be the case, discrimination also for other groups of the population on an ethnic basis, on a racial basis, on a linguistic basis, religious basis, and so on. The second type of risk of AI is stereotyping. So when AI systems propagate either stereotypical or objectifying views about women. A third risk is exclusion. So when women are not represented in decision-making around an AI tool, in terms of the development, they don't receive funding to develop their own AI tools. And this is often an issue that's discussed, potentially one of the issues that's most discussed when we think about AI and women, because it addresses this issue of representation, which is so important and has already been mentioned this morning. And the third one is violence and security. So AI systems also can directly be related and connected to insecurity of women or to gender-based violence. On the other hand, there are many opportunities. I've listed a few opportunities of AI for women, but there are many. The big one is economic empowerment and autonomy. So we're seeing the AI sector really take off globally. Many organizations and groups in Southeast Asia are starting to invest in artificial intelligence and really starting to see some transformative power of this suite of new technologies. And so for women to become very engaged in this new economic sector is quite important for their economic empowerment and for their autonomy. There's also, as we will see, many opportunities in relation to peace and security. And one area of interest in this research is to think about when you have women leading in the development of AI, what does that mean for technologies that could enhance women's peace and security? And you'll see a higher rate of development of WPS supporting and enhancing technologies when the tools are driven by women in the region. And then we have the area of leadership. So not only is AI a growing economic sector, but really in terms of societal decisions and governance, it's becoming incredibly important. And so it's really important for women to be front and center in terms of policy making and governance of artificial intelligence. And I'll expand a little bit on this policy issue because it's something I find that's really interesting and that has evolved a lot since we began this research nearly 2 years ago. At this moment, we're in a time of great movement in artificial intelligence policies. So individual countries have been moving in beginning to adopt AI legislations. The front mover in real legislation in relation to AI was the European Union that published the AI EU Act, which comes into effect very soon. Other countries have gone a more standards-based voluntary way, and that's spearheaded by the United States, for example. many of the countries in Southeast Asia, if not all, have adopted AI strategies. And many of these strategies have an objective of harnessing the socioeconomic potential of AI while also balancing ethical considerations and risks. At the United Nations, there was a drive beginning in 2023 of really pushing forward the global governance of AI. And we're in a phase this year of really wanting to come up with a UN-led solution to governing AI. And what's critical about this research is that the effects of AI on the women, peace, and security agenda are still underrepresented. And so we're hoping to ensure that this research really inserts itself into this very changing and evolving policy ecosystem and can really inform the future of AI policy. So artificial intelligence is a theme that we talk about a lot in the news that is quite complicated to define because there's many different technologies. It's a suite of tools. And we struggled at the beginning of this research to really think about how are we going to frame AI so that we can start analyzing this work. And so we took a framing of looking at 3 different types of applications. One is artificial intelligence for peace. So applications of AI that are used to enhance conflict prevention, humanitarian and peacekeeping efforts. We also looked at neutral AI. So AI power technologies that are typically have not been developed with a WPS idea in mind or concern in mind. These are a lot of the generalist platforms that we have access to, whether it's social media, which use a specific kind of algorithms called recommendation systems, or now generative AI, which is a different kind of AI used to interpret and generate text. Those are technologies that WPS was never a concern. So we're looking at those from the lens of neutral AI. And then we have AI for conflict. So AI tools that were specifically developed in order to engage in conflict, whether it's automated weapon systems, surveillance, and so on. So what do we find in our research? One of the very interesting findings that I found, and I think it's very meaningful for AI policy, is that there's a real difference in understanding amongst the stakeholders that we interviewed on what AI is and what the WPS is. And so to me, this means that finding convergence and acting on our recommendations is difficult if we don't have a common understanding of these 2 relatively complex issues. And so, for example, the private sector companies think about AI in terms of applications. So we can use these technologies to improve the environment or as early warning systems. They think about the women, peace, and security agenda only really in terms of representation of women in AI, whereas actually it's a much broader issue. When we look at civil society organizations that we interviewed, their definition of artificial intelligence was limited really to social media. And as we saw, social media is a category, uses types of AI that are in our category of neutral AI, and there's many more types of AI that can be considered. So the types of AI tools that we cataloged in our research are many. And so I'll give you some examples. So we found really interesting potential in AI for peace. Namely, so two categories of AI for peace. One is AI used for forecasting of conflict prevention, for understanding and creating early warnings of security issues. The other is the use of AI for facilitating digital dialogue, so for peace-building purposes to allow and enable discussions and whether it's with chatbots or virtual deliberations. And this is a topic that I could expand on a lot. It's very interesting if you're interested in looking at that. And so these are the main types of AI that we looked at. So for neutral AI, as I mentioned, we have social media, we have generative AI, and we have misinformation content, which is content created that is inaccurate but accidentally. For AI for conflict, we have autonomous weapon systems, we have disinformation content, which is content created with the intent to mislead and harm, and then surveillance. And what's important here is to consider that even when artificial intelligence technologies are created for peace purposes, which is important, there can still be risks in relation to discrimination, stereotyping, and exclusion if we don't test these tools for those specific issues. And one of the big contributions of the report is to provide a toolkit that would allow the developers of tools to consider and really reflect deeply on the effects of their tool on the WPS and make the necessary adjustments at the design phase. And we call it WPS by design. And so to conclude, we have a few recommendations here in our report, which I won't go into fully. You're welcome to read and to look at the report. The main hope here is to raise awareness of the very important intersection of AI and WPS in global governance issues, to really provide a clear guidelines on enabling WPS by design, and to generally show the potential and the power of leveraging AI for a variety of WPS-related issues such as hate speech monitoring, fact-checking, countering disinformation, and so on. So thank you very much, and I really look forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Great. So thank you so much for sharing an overview of some of the key risks and opportunities that we identified in terms of using AI applications in peace and security settings. I'm mindful of time. We have some time set aside for a Q&A. We're running a bit behind though, but I wanted to take one question from the room. So if anyone wants to ask a question to the speakers, please raise your hand and we will have the MC coming around with a microphone. And please state your name, organization, and your brief question. If not, I think I would really encourage you to take this opportunity. I'm also happy to discuss in the break. If not, I think we have one question online, but I want to give you the opportunity. Okay. I think one question that we got from our online participants. 1 second. So we have a question where someone's asking, what could be the role of young leaders to strengthen digital security? So if the speakers could just give your very brief maximum 2 minutes summary of what you think is perhaps one key point that can be done to support young people in this process.
Maybe I'll start with that and then pass the floor to Eleanor, and yes, try to keep it very brief. I think one of the key issues here in the space that we can support young people in this space is as digital rights defenders. This is and in terms of taking your current digital literacies and skills and competencies and helping yourselves become empowered and then empower others. One of the last things that I had said at the end there is really co-created and open source storytelling. We need more people to champion that. There's a bit of shame and I would say a lack of desire to kind of engage in discussions around when people have experienced being under cyber threat or being attacked, especially when it has a relationship to sexism and misogyny. And we need to talk more about that. So I would like young people to actually stand up and be empowered and take that space back. So one of the critical quotes that for me really sticks with me out of this research is where a woman human rights defender said that the real violence is in terms of cybersecurity is stealing the space and silencing people. So if we can, as I said, denormalize the experience of online violence while talking about our own stories, by really creating that space and giving your voices to this. So I don't think young people should be burdened by it, but I do think that they should be champions with that. And we all need to support young people to do that. So I'd really strongly encourage you to talk more and about this, to talk about how it's not okay, and to listen when people say, I experienced this thing, and not go, well, it's just the online environment. It's not just the online environment, it's real. And we need to empower people to actually take that space back. I'll hand over to Eleanor.
So what I would add is I see a lot of opportunity in terms of young people as innovators. In the report, we really document some very interesting uses of development of AI tools for WPS, namely some chatbots that help victims of sexual violence, some enhancements to very popular AI-powered tools that have been protecting of women's security. And more we have women engaged in the development of these tools, young people, even young men that are allies of these issues, the more we're going to see AI being used for purposes that we actually want and that are actually beneficial. Because the reason that AI as a tool is really exploding globally and being used a lot is because there's a lot of relevance and opportunity. But if these issues are not front and center in the mind of the developers, then that opportunity is lost. And so that's where I see a lot of potential, is for young people to innovate, to create new tools, and to put these issues at the heart of the tool development.
Great. Thank you so much for these very insightful remarks, and also for providing some tangible venues for us forward in supporting youth engagement on these topics as well. So on that note, really thank you to Jamie and Eleanor. Another big round of applause. And on that note, I will hand the floor back over to our MCs. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your engagement and enthusiasm throughout this launch event. And don't go anywhere yet, because we're moving to a very significant moment. It's the official launch of our research reports, and that will be marked by a special photo session. We're going to start with a small group photo, followed by a larger group photo. So for now, can I please welcome to the stage the following. Nurul Mohammed Rashid from UN Women. She's our Regional Policy Advisor on the Governance, Peace and Security team. Also, can I welcome Mr. Ham Jong Han, from the Deputy Chief of Mission from the Embassy of Republic of Korea in Thailand, and Ms. Hui C.K., the Second Secretary of the Embassy of Australia in Thailand. And if you could please position yourselves on the stage, just between these reports here, that would be wonderful, and we will take a photograph to mark this wonderful occasion. And while they're on the stage, I wish to remind you that all of our partners are invited to join us on the last day of the conference on Thursday, the 23rd of May, from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for a discussion with the young women, peace and security leaders to close our event. And that will be followed by a lovely lunch. So please do join us if you're available.
Well, as we always say, if we don't photograph it, it did not happen. So this is a time and the moment we're all going to be on the stage. So if I can invite you, to come to the stage, please be mindful of the steps to come to the stage. Don't be shy, please. Come in. We're gonna do it in 2 lines. Just watch out when you're stepping into the stage, you're behind. So you will have 1 line on the stage, 1 in the front. Sharpen your smile. So as a photographer, prepare, and I'm gonna help you to be there. We're gonna make sure that everyone actually, please kill the music, lower down. So a general rule, can you lower it? So general rule, if you listen to me, I'll make sure that you are in the photo. So a general rule, if you don't see the camera won't see you. So make sure you are in between 2 heads. If you are in the one behind, and would be appreciated, like tall people like me will go all the way in the back. We pay for our privilege. And make sure those actually what's gonna sit on the floor or like no down will be actually the most visible. Just hand. Okay, now I want to make sure that we actually see everyone. I would probably try to squeeze in more. Yep. We're gonna have another line of people sitting. Yes, we can do that. Or people can sit on the floor. Yeah. That's okay. Okay. I think you might want to come. Okay, squeeze in. If you want to come to the front. Believe me, you'll be most visible if you come in the front, especially if you're like way. Make sure. Can you see this part? There's more space. The front row. Don't be shy. Okay. More from here. If you wanna come in, yes. Yeah. This side. And roll if you can come a little bit. Yeah. Are you all good? This side. I will. Come on. I'll be at the back. Okay, so please focus on the camera. And when the photographer do the count, stay still. Come on, Julia. Come on. Yeah. Team, it's historical. It's historical. How? You're missing out. All right. Say peace. And one fun one, excitement. Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Please be careful when you're coming down. One more. It's never enough. We want to make sure it's all sharp and we have many options. Oh, okay. You're gonna see this in your 10 years memory and you're gonna love it. All right, please be careful when you're coming down from the stage. Watch out.
Yep. Thank you once again, Excellencies, participants and partners for making this launch a success. We now welcome you to enjoy a short breakfast break, and then let's continue to drive positive change together. For those staying, please take your belongings with you, as this room will be reconfigured. So a reminder to take all of your belongings with you, please, and thank you so much for your participation.
We have a 15 minutes break. And so please come back to this room. Just take your stuff with you for now, as we're going to reshape the room. Thank you so much, everyone.